17-year-old Mia Cole stepped off the bus, her boots thudding heavily against the pavement, drawing the gaze of everyone around her. Dressed in full tactical gear, she became the subject of hushed gossip that spread like wildfire. The early morning sun created long shadows over Westbrook High's parking lot, but it did nothing to mask the stares that followed her every move. "Is she seriously wearing that for Spirit Week?" sneered Amber Knight, the school president, her platinum blonde hair glinting under the sun. She let out a loud laugh, her voice cutting through the crowd like a blade, dripping with that tone of arrogant disbelief that came effortlessly to someone who had always been at the top. In seconds, her phone was out, and the first photo of Mia began to circulate across social media. The captions rolled in quickly. "Camo girl already ready for Friday's theme? Or is she just lost in a military fantasy?" Mia could almost feel each new notification popping up, adding another layer of humiliation to her already heavy burden. Her jaw tightened, and she marched on, passing a group of football players standing near their gleaming trucks. Chris Bryant, the quarterback with a personality as oversized as his muscular frame, nudged his buddies, nudging the mockery into motion. Left, right, he shouted in an exaggerated drill sergeant voice, while his teammates saluted dramatically. "Watch out, guys. We've got a real soldier here." The laughter stung, but Mia kept her head high, refusing to show any reaction. She'd learned long ago that showing weakness only fueled the flames. The oversized tactical vest hung loosely on her small frame, the sleeves rolled up to reveal hands that shook ever so slightly despite her outward calm. The fabric still faintly smelled like her father's cologne, a scent that filled her with both comfort and sorrow. She transferred to Westbrook High just a couple of months ago after her mother remarried a quiet, steady man named Greg who worked in accounting. The move had been necessary. Her mother couldn't bear the constant reminders of her late husband, a former police officer. But starting fresh in senior year was like trying to step into a story halfway through. Everyone already had their groups, their roles, their place in the intricate high school system. Today was meant to be about remembering. Her father's passing 3 years ago left a hole that nothing could fill, and wearing his uniform was the only way Mia could feel close to him. It wasn't about attention or fitting in, not that she had planned to be noticed. She just wanted to make it through this week and graduate quietly. But it was a day she couldn't ignore. As she walked toward the school building, her unusual outfit became a beacon for curiosity. Conversations halted as more students noticed her. Some whispered behind cupped hands while others pointed openly. A group of theater students, ever the dramatists, began performing exaggerated duck-and-cover routines, shouting "incoming" with theatrical flair. At her locker, the cruelty hit home again. A hastily scribbled note was taped to her locker door. "G.I. Jane just wants attention," it read in angry black marker. Mia ripped it off with such force that it crumpled in her hand, a flash of anger rising before she buried it deep. Her fingers trembled as she struggled with the combination lock. "You going for the military look today, huh?" said a voice behind her. Mia turned to find Lila Brown, a girl from her history class, watching with a look of confusion. "Is this for some project or something?" Mia shrugged, trying to act casual. "Something like that," she muttered, her throat tight. She didn't owe Lila an explanation, not for something this personal. The first bell rang, signaling the start of classes. Mia glanced at her reflection in the small mirror she'd tacked inside her locker. Her father's dog tags hung around her neck, tucked beneath the collar of his old uniform. For a brief second, it felt like he was standing behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder, urging her to stand tall. But when she blinked, there was only the buzz of students rushing by, each of them absorbed in their own worlds, leaving her to carry the weight of the past alone. By third period, the mocking had escalated into something more deliberate. Mia's chemistry class was supposed to be her safe space, but even here, she couldn't escape. As Mrs. Monroe began writing on the board, Mark Reed, a known troublemaker, took his moment. Claiming to need a pencil sharpener, he circled around Mia's desk, accidentally knocking her books to the floor in a dramatic display. "Oops," he smirked. "My bad." His voice was exaggerated, a mockery of chaos. Boom, boom. He gestured wildly, pretending to dodge imaginary explosions. The class erupted in laughter, the kind of laughter that stung and felt like barbed wire. Mia's face flushed, but she didn't respond. She bent down to collect her things, trying not to let her hands shake. "Careful there, soldier," Mark whispered, his voice low but loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Wouldn't want you to call for backup." More snickers followed. Mia's fists clenched at her sides. Every instinct screamed at her to lash out, to stand up for herself, but she knew better. Retaliation would only make things worse. So she said nothing, focusing on the lesson that felt like a distant hum, unable to block out the whispers. Lunch offered no relief. The cafeteria, already a social battlefield, felt like a war zone. Mia grabbed a tray, aware of the stares and whispered comments following her every step. She found an empty table far from the popular crowd. The isolation was a double-edged sword. It kept her safe from direct confrontation but made her an obvious target. Just as she thought she might make it through the meal without incident, Amber Knight and her usual crew appeared, the trio surrounding her like a perfect storm. "Look, military girl," Amber said with mock sympathy, sliding into the seat across from Mia without waiting for an invitation. "We get that you're trying to be edgy or something, but this whole costume thing? It's getting really old," she continued, her voice laced with false concern. Lila added, "You could probably find some normal clothes, like from an actual store instead of an army surplus." Mia's grip tightened on her fork, her fingers whitening. Amber's entourage hovered, making sure every word would be witnessed. The cafeteria had grown silent as the audience prepared for another round of entertainment. But this time, Mia stood slowly, her boots scraping against the linoleum with a resounding clack that cut through the tension. "You don't understand," she said quietly, but there was something fierce in her voice, something deeper than the shallow judgment they projected. Amber's smirk faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "What are you going to do? Call your dad to come rescue you?" Mia froze, the words slicing through her like a blade. She opened her mouth, but just then, a sound, louder than anything she had ever heard, erupted, shaking the cafeteria to its core. It started as a low rumble, then escalated into a deafening roar. The school shook as the sound grew louder. Students ducked under tables, terrified. The noise came from above, rattling the windows and shaking the very air. Mia turned toward the window just as a massive helicopter appeared above the school, its rotors churning the air into a storm. A Black Hawk. The crowd outside pressed against the glass, their phones already out. "What is that?" someone shouted. Amber's group, initially brimming with confidence, was now looking around in confusion. And Mia knew exactly what it was. The Black Hawk hovered over the school and slowly descended onto the football field, its size casting a shadow over the entire campus. The students, now fully engaged in the spectacle, rushed toward the exits, drawn by a mix of curiosity and excitement. The helicopter's engines whined as it touched down. The soldiers emerging from it wore dress uniforms, a sign of honor and discipline. And when one of the figures stepped forward, Mia's heart nearly stopped. It was Colonel Claire Hudson, her father's former commanding officer. Principal Simmons's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting the chaos. "Mia Cole, please report to the main office immediately." The announcement had the effect of a bombshell. Everyone's heads turned toward Mia, who stood motionless, the weight of her father's uniform feeling like both a shield and a shackle. As she walked down the hallway toward the office, the crowd parted for her, their phones still capturing every step. The whispers were gone now, replaced by awe and a newfound respect. Outside, the Black Hawk's presence dominated the field. Colonel Hudson, standing beside Principal Simmons, waited. She stepped forward as Mia arrived, announcing, "Today, we honor the memory of Sergeant Lucas Cole, who made the ultimate sacrifice serving his country 3 years ago. He died saving 12 lives." Mia stood in silence as the crowd gasped, realizing the truth about the girl they had ridiculed. The ceremony that followed was one of honor and respect, an event that changed the atmosphere at Westbrook High forever. Afterward, students who had mocked Mia earlier now approached her, their faces filled with regret. "I'm sorry," Mark whispered. Your dad, he was a hero. I didn't know. Mia nodded, her voice steady. Now you do. And that's why I wear this uniform. Not for attention, but for remembering. The helicopter took off, its rotors spinning into the sky. As it vanished into the distance, Mia stood tall, a hero's daughter who had finally earned the respect she deserved. As the helicopter disappeared into the horizon, the atmosphere at Westbrook High had forever shifted. The mockery and judgment that Mia had endured gave way to something far more powerful, understanding. No longer the target of cruel jokes, she had become a living reminder of the sacrifices made by those who served. Her father's legacy was not just a memory, it was a beacon of courage, integrity, and selflessness. For the first time, Mia felt the weight of her uniform transform into something more than a symbol of loss. It became her strength, her connection to a legacy much greater than high school social rankings. The same students who had once whispered behind her back now stood in awe, learning that heroism wasn't defined by popularity, but by the silent acts of bravery that often go unnoticed. Mia knew that, at last, her father's memory had been honored, not just by her, but by everyone who had witnessed this moment.